Cool. So I am really, really happy to introduce Dr. Kip Franklin, who is the assistant professor of clarinet at the University of South Alabama. He's a native of Michigan. Dr. Franklin has performed in concerts with the Saginaw, Midland, Jackson, Dearborn, and Toledo symphonies, as well as in festivals throughout the United States and in Europe. He is an advocate of new music, and Dr. Franklin was a part of a consortium for David Maslanka's Eternal Garden, 4 songs for clarinet and piano, and his concerto for clarinet and wind ensemble. He has presented and performed at many international clarinet association conventions, and prior to South Alabama, Dr. Franklin was on the faculty of Saginaw Valley State University. There's so much more to Dr. Franklin. I highly recommend that you go to our website and check out his bio. So we're so happy that you're here.
Thanks for having me. So it's a lot warmer down here than I think it is up there, so that's okay.
So we're going to be opening up with Sammy Weinkautz, who is, let me introduce her. She is a senior here at UW-Stevens Point, majoring in music education and clarinet performance. She is the principal clarinetist of the UWSP Symphony Orchestra and Symphonic Wind Ensemble, and was named co-winner of the Pete Faust Concerto Competition in 2019. She's also an active member of Delta Omicron, National Association for Music Educators, and the Student Coalition for Equity in Music. And joining her is Mary Ellen, who is the collaborative pianist for our choirs here, as well as a performer with us in the clarinet studio.
Excellent.
So they're going to be performing the first movement. You're welcome to stop them at any time. Okay. And at about 20 minutes till, I'll pop up with a 5-minute. So we'll do 25 and 25.
Sounds good. Yeah, and we're gonna, and Sarah, just so you know, we're running a little bit behind here at the university, so there's not quite the urgency.
Oh, okay.
So if we go over a bit, it's not a big deal.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, yay. Okay.
Let me just grab my clarinet and make sure that it's ready to go. And then, okay. So would you like to start with the first or second movement of this?
We'll be doing the first movement.
First movement only, no second movement?
For today, yeah.
All right, excellent. So when you're ready, let's go ahead and start this. Good. Perfect. Okay, nice job. So can you tell me your name one more time?
Sammy.
Sammy, excellent. Awesome. So Sammy, are you playing this in preparation for maybe your last recital that you're going to give there?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds very well prepared, and 2 compliments to start off with. First of all, I really like the quality of tone that you're producing. And the second thing that I really appreciate is I really like the rhythmic diligence with which you're executing the piece.
Thank you.
So what I mean by that is I can hear a difference between triplets, regular sixteenths, triplet sixteenths. I can hear a very audible and very purposeful difference and attention to those details. So that's really good. My comment, and keep in mind that, you know, when you do these things, sometimes you get contradictory comments, and that's fine. You reconcile them at the end of this, and then ultimately you just end up doing whatever your teacher wants you to do, and that's fine. But I might suggest relaxing some of the triplet sixteenths just a little bit for stylistic purposes. If you had to think about a character of this first movement, keeping in mind what he's written, what would you maybe say?
Joyful.
Joyful, okay. Anything else?
Really playful.
Yeah, so I think that we could afford a little bit. I'm glad you said that. We could afford a little bit more play in the rhythms. You know, I'm working with my students right now on this, in that we work to a certain level to get the notes and the rhythms correct. But then once we reach that level, it's almost like we have to forget about all that and then just start playing music. And that's a fine line that you have to cross. But for me, I think that the triplet sixteenths could be relaxed a little bit so it could fit more in the playful character. Especially the ones where you have to go into the fifth partial. Like I want to hear that D, and I want to hear the connection between B, C, and D versus just hearing a flurry of sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's fine, but I would prefer to hear something that's just like, if you can imagine all those three notes fit inside the and of a beat, right? If you could just imagine, like, you're going to stretch that subdivision, that and of a beat, like to the maximum capacity it can achieve, that you're going to fill it out as best as possible, that you're going to spread those triplets all the way through that tiny portion of time. I think it'll be a little bit more melodic sounding. Okay, so I'll have you try that in just a second. The other thing I would encourage you to try is, if I could maybe give your attention to a passage like before C, like 2 bars, 2 or 3 bars before C. So we have problems as clarinet players in that we have to work really hard, harder than our other colleagues in the other woodwind families do, to make our sound really homogeneous. Because we have these weird things, and they have the register key instead of an octave key, and we have throat tones and all that stuff. And it makes it really difficult to achieve homogeneous sound, especially around, like where you are at C, around A, B, F sharp area in there. So 2 things. First, I would do less diminuendo before C. I would wait until I arrived at my cadence at C, where he's actually written the decrescendo, okay, before I did any sort of dynamic nuance. And the reason I do that is because I want all my notes to be heard equally leading up to the cadence. Right now, I'm missing a bit the C sharp, and certainly the A, the B, the C natural. I wonder if maybe just playing a little bit stronger and being a little bit more committed to finishing the phrase rather than being diligent about the dynamic he's written would help.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, could we start? Would it be possible to start at the pickups to B? And let's see if maybe we could get just, again, a little bit more. I don't want you to play the wrong rhythm, but what I want you to do is maximize the rhythmic space that you're given. And again, when you have stuff like that triplet 16th at B, that doesn't work well on the clarinet because you have to cross a break again up high. If you can, finesse the rhythm so that it's as equal as possible and smooth as possible. I think you'll find that you actually have more time to play the notes than what you're giving yourself.
Okay.
Okay. and then sustain the sound leading into C. So why don't we do it? Let's start at the pickup to B, and then let's keep going after letter C.
Okay.
And see what else we find. You sound excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, good. That's plenty. Good. Thanks. Okay, again, sounds great. It really does. And I think just to recap the stuff that we worked on up until C, I like that you're experimenting with stretching that rhythm out. And I think, and maybe what we realize is you can actually do the same thing in some of the other, like the eighth note triplets, for example. Okay, so your proportion, your rhythmic ratios still stay the same. It's just you got more time to express the notes in them. Okay. All right. Two other things I want to mention to you. One of them is rhythmic and the other one is tonal. Let's deal with the tonal one first. So tell me this. You're a double major in performance and education, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. So you are working with a budding high school senior who is having problems in the high register of the clarinet, like anything E, F, F sharp, G, okay? So what do you address first? I mean, what does it take to play successfully in the upper register on the clarinet?
I probably address tension.
Okay. And where would that tension be that you would address?
In the embouchure if they're biting.
Okay. Let's say you address that and you find that they are in fact using good embouchure pressure. What's the next thing that you go looking for?
Tongue position.
Thank you. Yes, good. That's correct. Tell me about the tongue position.
It has to be quite high.
It does. Anything else?
It's very subtle. It's not
Okay.
a drastic change.
Yeah. So if now, and again, you know, this is the new world we live in. So I wish I were actually like standing next to you to be able to hear you. But hearing you, at least in this capacity over the internet, it sounds like your high register at times, especially when you're really going for it at loud dynamics, is a little bit strident relative to your other registers.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay. So in addition to thinking about the tongue being high in the back, okay, like you know, we could think of it as like, I'm sure you've heard it described as like a slide or like a bent spoon or something like that, something with this kind of shape to it. I also would remind you, and I like to think of the tongue not just being high, but being forward in the mouth a bit. Okay, so it's, you know, if you imagine, and you guys can all try this, if you imagine your tongue in its normal resting position, like if you were saying, you know, something like that. And then your clarinet teacher says, well, your tongue needs to be high in the back. So you go, okay, it's high in the back. But it also should be pushed forward in the mouth just a little bit. Okay. I find that that helps bring the high register in focus. And the whole premise behind having a high tongue is you want to narrow the space so that your air can accelerate. Well, fine, narrow the space between your tongue and the roof of your mouth, and narrow the space between your tongue and the front of your mouth too. Okay? So in places like all the technique before E, where you're headed up to high E and high F sharp, and you want to try to get there cleanly with the technique, with the fingers. Make sure that the tongue is in an optimal position for you to do that. Here's a way that we can test this, if you want to indulge me for a second. So let's take a C, a low C. And you may have tried this on your own, you may not, but can you take that C and turn it into a G without using the register key? Good. Did you use the register key? Say no.
I did not.
Excellent. Can you do the same thing? Can you get a C, a G, and an E? Good. And of course, you know, because of the harmonic series, the notes are out of tune from where they would normally be when we play them. Can you go one level farther and get an A?
What? Not quite.
You know, rather than working on these spots with the high notes, I might encourage you to just try those voicing exercises and see if you can get fundamental, third partial, fifth partial, seventh partial, all the way. It's a nice parlor trick that you can impress your friends with at clarinet conventions and musician parties and things like that. But where the payoff is in places like before letter E, when you have fast filigree work that you have to execute. It trains your embouchure to be, and by embouchure I mean outside and inside, to be just a little bit better positioned. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the tonal element. I think that keeping the tongue forward will help your upper register match better, and it'll also be more responsive. The second thing is rhythmic. I would encourage you to take this idea that we talked about with maximizing beat space and apply it to all of your 16th notes.
Okay.
I think, Sammy, that you have more time than you are giving yourself to play all of these difficult notes.
Okay.
Okay. So, for example, let's take a passage. Let's look at, how about the poco più moto before E, like 3 bars.
Yep.
Okay. So there's lots of stuff we have to do, and it's all rhythmically hard, and there's rests and things like that. Can you try this once for me? And how about we just play it? Can you just try that passage at roughly half tempo? And if I played wrong notes, don't play wrong notes. But
Okay.
try it at half tempo, no piano.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's try one more time. So even at this slow tempo, I want you to try to maximize your sound over your rhythmic space. Again, I'm listening to you through the internet, but I hear that your staccatos could be longer, especially. Keep in mind, when you slow the tempo down, the notes have to get longer, right? Because when you speed it up, they'll get shorter automatically. So try as best you can to maximize every single sound you make. Can you try that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, not bad. Now, we as musicians have sort of a nasty habit of we always want to rush to the silence. Like we always want to hurry up to be done with something. So where I hear your rhythm potentially the weakest is when you have the 2/16ths that are followed by a 16th rest. You know, if you're recording yourself or your rehearsals, that might be spots that you key into. And I might record yourself with the metronome, you know, clicking eighth notes or something like that. So you have an intermediate subdivision to check with and see if there's any sort of compression that's happening inside the technique. Okay. All right. Could we start there with piano and let's go on. So all throughout this section, because it's a lot of noodly notes that are hard to play, but I think the two fundamental principles I just talked to you about are the same. Keep the tongue not just high, but forward in the mouth. Okay. And also, again, try to maximize your rhythmic space. Don't compress, especially when you're around silences.
Okay.
Why don't we try that? Right at that poco più moto before E. You can take pickup if you need to. Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's better. Just a couple quick, thank you. Hi. Good. Just a couple quick fire things, Sammy, because I know we're a little short on time. So look, before letter H, 4 bars.
Okay, yep.
I think I would not play that eighth note quite as short. Do of course do what your teacher tells you to do, but I would be a little bit skeptical of that staccato there.
Okay.
All right, I would favor more sound rather than short note, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So consider the character of the note. In the 5 minutes that we have, how often do you record yourself practicing or rehearsing? The answer is probably not as often as I should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and I'm guilty of the same, right? I think between letter E and letter I, let's say, maybe even just a few bars before that, if you can do a little bit of halftime practice, meaning take these, oh, I don't know what you want to call them, maybe 45 bars or so, and practice them at half of your performance tempo and work in the service of making sure that you are maximizing your rhythmic space. I think it's going to clean up your overall picture when you go to put it in real time. You don't have to do the thing where you sit there with the metronome on 60 and then play it at 63 and then play it at 70. Just whatever your tempo is, half it, play it once or twice at half tempo, and then play it again. Because what it trains you to do is it trains you not only to feel and connect between every note, but it also trains your aural memory. Okay? We can get into trouble as musicians when we start playing exclusively by kinetic memory, by muscle memory. Slowing it down will force you to also realize what it sounds like as you play it. And that way it's easier to play in real time when you're going, because you're not necessarily scrambling for notes so much. You're listening as you're playing. Other things I would offer to you. When is your recital, by the way?
April 24th.
Okay, so you have time to do that. Good. Excellent. I would say, just in closing, try as best you can to make a distinction between objective rhythm and melodic rhythm. What do I mean by that? Don't play this piece the same way that you would play like a Sousa march in band or something like that. Keep in mind that what I told you at the beginning, you have the framework very much set. I mean, you've picked out the canvas, you've got the frame, you've got the sketches, and you're starting to fill in the colors. All right. Don't be afraid as you continue to approach your recital date to exercise ownership of the piece by making those rules that you're following, those parameters that you're sort of relying on right now, a little bit more flexible. What does that mean for you? It means spreading things out. It means spreading out rhythms. It means making sounds more equal. It means enjoying and singing all the way through the instrument as you play. Okay?
Yeah.
Any questions for me?
No, that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. I'm glad. Okay, it sounds terrific, and I think it's going to be just fine. What else are you playing on your recital?
The Gershwin 3 Preludes, Shepherd on the Rock. Oh, Gordon Jacob.
The 5 pieces?
Yep.
Awesome.
And an electronics piece, a Turkish clarinet electronics piece.
Okay, excellent. Cool. I think you're in good shape. I think that the rhythm, the comments that I gave you, particularly about rhythm and also again about high register playing with the tongue, not just high, but forward, will help you in the other pieces too. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So the next person we have is bass clarinet,
Playing Osborne.
playing the Osborne.
All righty.
And we have the first 2 pages prepared.
Okay.
And while we're getting set up, let's talk a little bit about our next performer. This is Samuel Barrett. So we had Sammy and now we have Sam.
That makes it so easy for me. Thank you.
I was really trying to make it as easy as possible. So he is a music education major with a minor in Spanish. He's from Blaine, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis, and he's a sophomore here on campus.
Excellent. And
Couple notes.
yeah, play a couple notes. Sam, did you say that your education?
Yep.
The minor in Spanish. Okay, awesome. Yeah, play a couple notes.
All right.
All right, when you're ready, go ahead. Good. Okay, that's plenty. All right, nice job, Sam. So that's good, and that's hard to play on bass clarinet. So, you know the history of this piece a little bit.
Not too much of it.
Do you know what it was originally written for?
Bassoon, right?
Yeah. Do you know for what it was written?
I don't know that.
Okay, because like this is the only thing that by Wilson Osborne that anybody ever plays ever. Like there is no, there are no other Wilson Osborne pieces that people play. So he actually wrote this for a NBC, I believe it was NBC radio broadcast. Okay, and it was supposed to be out of Philadelphia, a concert that was broadcast of entirely new music. Okay, so let me ask you this question then. What is a rhapsody?
I don't really know.
If I were playing a piece called Rhapsody, that would be something that I would want to know.
That's true.
Probably and we see this in other places. Obviously, probably the most famous one is like Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a rhapsody is, and people's definitions of it may vary a little bit, but essentially it is a piece without pre-prescribed form.
Okay.
For example, you're a sophomore, right?
Yep.
So have you taken anything about musical form, like sonata form?
We've covered it a little bit in some of the music theory classes.
Great. So if I were going to play a piece titled Sonata, I would expect that it would have a first theme, a transition, a second theme that would make up an exposition followed by a development and eventually a recapitulation, because that's sonata form. A rhapsody is not just a piece without pre-prescribed form, but it's almost like a piece that evolves, like stream of conscious. Okay, very much in the same way that, like, how do I want to say this? Sort of like a single cell almost that divides suddenly into multiple ways exponentially. Like it's a small idea that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just evolves as the piece goes. Okay?
Mhm.
So that's important for you to keep in mind. And I bring that up to you not just for trivial reasons, but because I think it really matters about how you play it. Overall, Sam, you're doing well, but you're playing too fast.
Okay.
You need to take what I told Sammy, and keep in mind, Sammy's playing a piece that's governed strictly by meter, right? Because she's got piano with her and it's all written out and so forth. And it's also sonatina, so it has a bit of pre-prescribed form to it. You need to take those ideas to an entirely different extreme, because here you are playing an unaccompanied rhapsody for solo bass clarinet. I would encourage you to exaggerate the time and own the time as much as possible.
Okay.
Think about this piece evolving from that single first note, okay? And I'm not saying don't count it, but I'm saying don't be overly technical about it. It's got to be a little bit more improvisatory sounding. So I would think, okay, so I would think more. And I would take my sound to its maximum soft extreme there. Then I would take a breath and start the second phrase. And so on and so on. So it's like the piece is always trying to wind up but stalls. Okay?
Yeah.
So why don't you try, and I won't have you play but maybe 4 lines or so, 4 or 4.5 lines. Try at the beginning, and I just want you to think like it's a tiny idea, a single pitch that just evolves. It expands and contracts slowly. Try that for yourself.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So let me give you a little bit of other suggestions maybe about how to do this. Is this your first time playing an unaccompanied piece?
No, I've played other unaccompanied pieces before.
What other unaccompanied pieces have you played?
Mainly the Bach cello suites. I played a couple from the first and then his second suite.
Did you play them on bass clarinet?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So those are great. They obey a little bit different rules than this piece does, just because of the nature of when they were composed and so forth. But the strategies probably there are the same. You know, you phrase according to harmony and things like that. So let me ask you this question. Do you know what key this piece is in?
That's a good question.
I know.
I guess I would say probably at least for the first line or so, like G minor maybe.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to disagree with you, because if we were in G minor, we would need what essential pitch?
G.
Yeah, and okay, good. Thank you. Excellent. Smart kid. Okay. What other essential pitch?
F sharp.
We need lots of F sharps, right? And I see all of 0 F sharps.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's actually a little bit of a trick question. When you play Bach and things like that, it uses traditional harmony, so it's a little bit more intuitive. Here, what I would encourage you to realize is that this piece is actually written in Phrygian mode.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, starts out in D Phrygian, and we end up going through a bunch of stuff and we end in G Phrygian. Now, do you know anything about Phrygian mode?
Not a whole lot, probably not as much as I should.
That's fine. You don't need to know a lot about it, except that it's defined by the interval of a half step. If you look in the first, 2 or 3 lines, we have, how many times do you see E flat falling to D? There's one. And look, here's another half step. And here it gets really exciting because we get D, the minor second above it, and the, what do you want to call it? The subtonic, the leading tone below it. It's like the whole thing is just orbiting around D. Okay? That should help you craft some sort of strategy for phrasing and pacing as you play it.
Okay, yeah.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to start at the beginning one more time. I want you to extend the time a bit, and I also want you to especially exploit the half-step intervals that you find, because they're kind of the ear markers of this piece. Somebody listening to you play this would say, "Oh, I don't really know if that was in a major or minor key, but I can hear those kind of motifs happening." Right?
Okay.
All right, let's try again from the beginning, and I'll let you play a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. I like that quite a bit better. Quite a bit better. And I'm convinced after you sort of sit with it and let it marinate a little while, it's going to make you more comfortable playing the piece.
100%.
I think that one of the things that makes us uncomfortable when we perform is we feel like we lose control of time, that things are happening that we have no control over. And if you can really get used to kind of literally, almost, well, figuratively, I guess, sinking into this piece, okay, by way of the descending half-step motive that's created as a result of Phrygian mode, I think it takes on a much more meditative and less hurried quality. Okay. I must give you excellent props for your high register. I am envious. It sounds very good and very well practiced. I bet you play bass clarinet a lot in band.
Yeah, I've played bass clarinet since 7th grade and haven't really played much on the B flat.
Okay. Do you ever do, I'm just curious, do you ever do any sax doubling?
I did in high school when I did marching band,
Okay.
but nothing super serious there.
Okay. All right. You could make some extra bank if you wanted to. Good. So a couple of other things. So just very, very quickly, where we just stopped at the low F sharp.
Yep.
So about 2.5 bars before that, you see Poco written there.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you actually to wait to do that until you arrive at the 3-2 bar, because
Okay.
otherwise your phrase will stall and you might die because you're running out of air.
Yeah.
Moving. And you can take the time on those last 3/4 notes rather than okay? Good. Now, I just want to point this out to you. As we go forward, here comes our friend the half step again, right? All over the place. So again, let that kind of be your guide as far as where the phrases really happen, where you can take time, and where you can give a little bit of time back. Okay?
Okay.
I said this a second ago to you. This piece is like, you know, trying to start a lawnmower and it doesn't go. And so you pull it again and it doesn't go. And finally it sparks around the second page right after we stop, like around the 16/8 bars when finally the spark starts to catch. So
Yep.
really up until there, just relax, relax, relax. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Can you start at the bottom of the first page, right when we get to the cantabile, kind of the next stage of our thematic, our rhapsodic evolution?
Sure.
Let me ask you a couple questions. So first of all, on that second line on the second page, how are you fingering the high D flat?
I'm doing the back, so the F key, the back hole, the register key, and then
Yeah.
the up two side.
Yeah,
keys.
so you're doing an overblown chromatic F sharp.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. All right. I love that fingering myself. What you should be aware of in this case then is two things. One, try not to force that D flat with the sound, even though it's the height of the phrase. It's only piano.
Mhm.
And also keep in mind, it's not a real D flat fingering, right? It's a fake D flat fingering. So it's like chromatic F sharp in the lower register, okay? But just with the register key down. So like thumb F or C with the two side keys. So if you try to give this fingering too much gas, like it's the real fingering, it's gonna bite back at you. It's gonna fail. Okay? I would temper the dynamic a little bit there. It is piano after all. And that way I think you can make the phrase a little bit more successfully. If you just shave off maybe a third of the dynamic, I think that you'll avoid some of that feedback you got from the mouthpiece and reed.
Okay.
Okay, good. So why don't we just start on that part and go on just a little bit. Not bad. For my, and again, you know, you can write this down and then you can ignore it later if you don't like it. I would take a breath before the octave G. I would not be in a hurry to play the 16ths.
Yeah, I have it marked in. I just didn't do it that time.
Okay, so you'll do it next time. Good. The other thing I was going to mention to you, Sam, is all the way back where we started it at measure 20. Right there.
Yep.
I think, how long have you been working on this piece?
For about a month and a half or so.
I think the tempo can move a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, if you want to relate this to something that's a little bit more familiar to us, this would be like our contrasting B section. Okay. So it's the same in that it's still based around a half step. It's contrasting in that it's higher in the range. And I think it also is a little bit faster. It tries to move ahead more.
Okay.
Okay. And 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and 3 and a 1 or whatever that is, and 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1. You can take your time there. Okay, good. All right. Can you start at the hi? Let's use the last couple minutes. Can you start at the pickup to the 16/8? All right, let me hear what's going on there. Take your time through the 16ths.
Okay.
Sam, it's too fast. It's too fast. It's too fast. It's outside the realm of your control.
Yep.
Right? Just slow down. Hear it as you play it. Try again. Good. Okay, good. So Sam, how are you thinking of the 16/8 bar?
I'm kind of thinking of it like a cadenza type thing where I kind of speed up and slow down just a little bit and kind of dramatize, if that's the right word.
Yep. Okay. Now, I don't disagree. However, are you aware that you're leaving notes out in that 16/8 bar?
Now that you say that, I probably am, yeah.
Okay, so here's what I would do. And keep in mind, this goes for anybody that has to play something unaccompanied or cadenza or something that's, rhythmically free or something like that. Before we go just literally improvising on it, we got to have some kind of foundation, some kind of rhythmic structure.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sam, this is going to be really unimpressive, but the 16/8 bar is just 2 bars of 4/4. Okay, that's how I would think of it. I would think 2, 1, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a, so, and then the next downbeat is right under the 2 of the 92.
Okay.
So if you put it together. That's kind of like the bass line that your fingers have got to know before they go being dramatic about the passage.
Okay.
So can you try that for me? Can you just play the 16/8 bar? And I want you to keep just a constant quarter note pulse.
Okay.
That's close. So what I might encourage you to do is after we're done or next time you practice it, actually mark where all the quarter notes are. What you will find is that they don't agree with Osborne's beaming.
Okay.
Okay? So you're going to have a beat or a downbeat like in the middle of a group of notes. But if you can realize that, and I'm not telling you to play it with a quarter note pulse or anything like that, but what I'm saying is the technique is a little bit untempered right now. How do we temper it? We have to get it moving through time at a consistent rate. We do that with things called beats. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if you can measure it out in terms of the quarter note, that'll make it sort of stick and glue between the 3/4 and the 5/4. All right? Once you can play it, then go ahead and finesse it and rubato and be dramatic and everything like that. but it's got to have a little bit of foundational structure. And right now, as I hear you play, I'm a little concerned that your technique is a house of cards. Okay, in that if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing's gonna collapse.
Yep.
Let's make sure that you keep it nice and rhythmically grounded, so that even if something happens, if you make a quack or if you play a wrong note or something like that, that at least you have some sort of, you know, Google mapped version through that bar. And the same thing would be true. I know you haven't gotten there yet, but the very same thing would be true on the last page where you have all those crazy 16th notes in the middle.
Yeah.
First, just play it with raw quarter note rhythm. Okay. Be unmusical about it, be diligent, and just be exact. Then reward yourself by getting to play musically and dramatically. Okay. We should probably stop, as much as I would love to keep going. So, but I think that you sound terrific. I really do. I'm super happy you're playing this piece on bass clarinet. And again, your high register, I'm very envious of. So congrats on all the work you've put in.
Thanks, Dr. Franklin.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have just a few seconds for any questions?
I have yes. Thank you.
Did anybody at home or here have any questions for
Yeah.
Dr. Franklin?
Just pipe up if you do.
What are some
Oh,
ways that you recommend them practicing, like you were talking with Sammy, practicing stretching the rhythm within the beat that it is loud? What are some ways that you practice that?
Yeah, so first of all, you have to use the metronome, as annoying as it is, and I hate doing it too. And you have to record yourself. And when you record yourself, then you must actually listen to the recording that you made of yourself. And what I do is I will conduct my recording. Okay, much in the same way that when you play auditions, either at school or orchestrally, you know, round one is just you with the screen and somebody behind it thinking, can he or she play in time? Does his or her beat match my beat? And a lot of times what I find is there are inconsistencies in my rhythm, which create inconsistencies in my technique. So that's what I would do. And I mean, it's daunting and it's awful. Don't make a whole practice session out of it. Work on whatever you want to work on and then say, okay, I'm going to take these 12 bars, or, you know, for Sammy, from rehearsal C to rehearsal E, and I'm going to play it with my metronome going and record it once. And then I'm going to listen to it in 2 hours and figure out where it is that I either, you know, erased a beat or was late or squished time together, things like that. That's what I would do. And I would play for each other live. You're very lucky that you are able to meet live, at least in some capacity. But I would, if you're an audience member, I would listen with those microscopic ears and see what's happening.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I don't want to keep you. I know you've had a crazy day, but
Next thing, so it's fine.
okay. We have, so many great tips today. Thank you. Any other questions? If you could pick one thing that you weren't able to talk about today, what would you talk about? I get on kicks. I'll get on rhythm kicks or air kicks or something. What?
Well, right now, I would say, and I guess I sort of said it to Sammy a little bit, but like, just because I'm on a kick of like, I got to get these students like through their recitals and things, like, understand that artistry comes at 2 levels. The first is, you must master the fundamental. That's what I was talking with Sam about. You cannot take dramatic license or artistic license without having a firm foundation under you first. There are people that try to do that, and they are called bad musicians. Okay? And we know there are a lot of bad musicians in the world, the people who are all in it for the drama and the flair. And that's good, but when they can't tell a quarter note from a quarter pounder, that's a problem. So, you know, if you can divide your practice between just nuts and bolts, rhythm, notes, objective stuff, and really put stock in that, and then say, I'm going to trust myself to know all this stuff. Now I'm going to do something with it. Now I'm going to bend the rules. Now I'm going to, you know, try something that somebody else has or hasn't done. Okay. And your chances of success, and not only in execution, but also in conveying an artistic statement, are much higher if it comes from that firm foundation that you've got under you. Don't just play based on what you heard on the recording. Okay. Really put in the time with the metronome, the notes, look at the score, all that good stuff that you would do if you were teaching the piece to somebody else.
Yeah. 100%. Thank you for saying it.
No
Good
problem.
that they hear it from you.
They've never heard it before.
I know, right? Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much. It was so good to see you again. I've missed you dearly.
I know. So
I'm-
I'll send you a note maybe tomorrow about what to do next week. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you again, Dr. Franklin. Yeah, good. Have a good rest of your day.
I'll have to hear some flute recitals. So
Oh, have fun.
see ya.